Hey everyone, it's Guillaume from Startup Basecamp. Welcome to Tech for Climate podcast. During the show, you will have the opportunity to meet the best climate tech founders, investors, experts from Silicon Valley and around the globe. They will share with you their stories and personal journey in this growing industry, giving you some insights on the ecosystem to hopefully help you to take part in the climate change fight and benefit from the opportunities that it can also represent. The podcast is divided in two small interviews. During the first part, you will get to know our speaker, their perspective on the climate crisis, and how climate tech is changing the game. The second part of the talk will be for our members of the community who will learn from the speakers their secret sauce on how to, sharing with you their unique expertise on various topics as fundraising, management, strategy, and so on to help you to become a better leader in your field. Let's go for the show. Hi everyone. In today's episode, we will speak with the co-founders of Planet A, Fridtjof and Nick, who are seeking to support and invest in founders tackling the world's largest environmental problems such as greenhouse gases, plastics, and water shortage. They will uncover how they provide early-stage funding and mentoring to highly scalable impact companies, while measuring and forecasting the positive ecological impact of startups as their central metric of success. Their unique approach is supported by a network of scientists and experts developing frameworks and methodologies with them to assess the impact prior to making their investment decision. In the second part of the show, Fridtjof and Nick will give a series of valuable insights for climate tech founders to successfully pitch investors. Finally, they will share with you their secret sauce on how they balance their busy founders and investors' work life. Fridtjof, Nick, welcome to the show. 2, 3. Hi, Fridtjof and Nick. Welcome to the Tech for Climate podcast. Super happy and excited to have you here for this interview. So, two co-founders. That's super exciting. So, we'll start with the first question that we have. If you can give us a snapshot, a 20-second intro about Planet A.
So, Planet A is an early-stage venture fund based out of Germany. And we are looking to invest into seed stage companies with an average ticket size of around 1 million initial check sizes. We are looking to not only support German entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs who are working in Europe, because we believe that Europe is going to become a tech center for innovative technology. And our focus is, as Planet A, we're caretakers of the planet. So we're looking for companies which do something which is measurably good and does benefit our economy. We usually do lead or co-lead, and I think that should suffice at this point.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nick. So we're gonna start with Fridtjof. If you can give us a little bit more information about like your incredible story as a serial entrepreneur. Your background, and maybe you can share with us one thing that you love to do besides Planet A.
Well, I got to start with the stuff I love besides Planet A. So it is actually quite connected to the planet. So I love flying with a paraglider or kite surfing in high waves. So that really is a thing which keeps me up. So I started my first company when I was still in school, 16 to be precise, and we were doing websites for other people. That, to put it in a perspective, was 1999, and we've grown the company from 3 people on the barn to now 260 people. So the company is called Jimdo. We enable small and medium-sized businesses all around the world to build and update their own website or build an online shop. That is what I've did for 18 years. And then I was getting into something new. I did a TV documentary with DW, Deutsche Welle. And the idea was that a founder is traveling the world is portrayed other founders which are tackling big problems. From water shortage, food shortage, climate issues, basically everything. And that left me with this feeling of, wow, I'm a prototype of a privileged German So how can I help? How can I contribute? And that is kind of the feeling which I got after this 120 days of filming. And luckily then I met really good scientists, which opened my eyes as an entrepreneur to the quantitative analysis of startups and their ideas. And that's also one of the core pillars of Planet A, to put things into perspective. How much better is an idea? How much better in climate mitigation and resource efficiency and waste reduction? That's what we're looking at.
Fantastic. And how did you meet Nick?
Maybe because it's a funny story. I've basically spent my career in deep tech, so always at the intersection of AI, blockchain, IoT, and the commercialization of things, and have been going through a couple of roles, also partly as an entrepreneur with my own company. And the time was really primed by the realization, a very similar one to the one that Fridtjof just described, of me also being highly privileged and wanting to give back. And so at some point I started to draft Planet A as an early stage fund. And then by faith or luck or coincidence or whatever you would like to call it, I got in touch with Friedel at some point, and we were basically presenting each other the ideas we had in our head, and we very quickly realized that we had Planet A twice, not only once, but really twice. We had two domains, planeta.com and planeta.ventures. And we said that that's a very good time for no egos, and decided to team up and throw everything into the same direction.
Fantastic. And when was it, like a year ago, 2 years ago, or?
Beginning of 2020. So before the pandemic, we were able to see each other, and now that's a year and a couple of months ago.
Fantastic. So you covered this story, and thank you so much. But you didn't tell us what you love to do besides Planet A. What's characterize you?
I used to climb a lot. So in Berlin, it's quite tricky to go climbing outdoors. There are a couple of boulders, but it's much easier to go within climbing indoor climbing spots. And so that this hasn't been a thing. So right now I'm spending my time outdoors anyways, playing frisbee, whatever you can do in Berlin.
Fantastic. But thank you so much. So if any of you can, maybe go a little bit more into the specifics about your investment thesis with Planet A. I saw that you guys are focusing in those three areas, which is greenhouse gas reduction, plastics, and water shortage. Can you tell us a little bit more about why choosing those ones, and what's the thesis behind Planet A?
Yeah, so super happy to do. So basically we call ourselves Planet A because it's about the planet. And so we looked at what are the crises we are facing, and basically we looked at the SDGs and said which one actually correlate with the biosphere. And so we grouped them and put them actually into 4 categories, and that's climate mitigation, waste reduction, resource efficiency, and biodiversity. And so we quite quickly came to the realization saying, okay, clustering then is one thing, but we really have to quantify it. So basically we all together have built an economy which is using 1.7 Earths, and we only have 1, right? So for us, it became obvious that whenever we look to kind of invest into a company, we have to make sure it's a company which is kind of supporting an economy which is within the planetary boundaries. And we only can make this call and this decision whenever we quantify stuff. And for us, in order to quantify things, you need to look into the impact data quite precisely. You have to come up with the numbers, not just a scoring model. And so that was the reason also, because we're a bigger team and we have a full science team on board, which is able to calculate the exact impact numbers. And we always put them into perspective of how the world looks today and which kind of change a startup can bring. And we only invest if a company is significantly better in one of the named criteria, and then we do so.
Okay. And did you develop like in-house type of framework? How do you quantify and measure this impact? Because as you know, it can be very, especially you investing in different impact, I would say, industries. So almost like could be CO2 emission reduction or removal. It can be plastics. I mean, it's so various. So how do you define that, and how long did it take you guys to validate those models in a way?
Yeah, cool. So what we're using as a basis is life cycle assessments. And life cycle assessments, you look at the whole life cycle of a product, basically from production to usage to the end of life scenario. So really, you consider everything which happens to a product throughout the whole lifespan, and you look at all the mass and energy balances throughout the lifespan. And so you quickly see that's a lot to consider. And if you have to map out the flow of a product and really calculate everything, and that's a lot of work to be honest. Like that is you're putting all the numbers, lots of numbers crunching, connecting things. But the beauty of it, if you do that for the world today, and the idea of a startup, you actually you have something like a weighted balance. You can say how much better is something, not just hope for a better outcome. You can really quantify it, and that's the beauty of it. And I think so what we see is whenever we invest into a startup, and then like we only do the full SCA, obviously, if we are about to invest. Before we kind of do rougher estimations to be also resource efficient with our time. But when we do so, then I think there's trust on two levels. I mean, there's trust anyway if you invest into a company, you put in money, right? But there's another momentum, I guess, and that is kind of we are providing scientific evidence about the idea the founders came up with in the first place, and that actually helps them to land also deals and to communicate the change they're bringing to the world, and that enables them to really be better in marketing and hiring the right people because they have proof for their mission. And that's what we do, and I think that is something which should be done more in early stage capital, because I think early stage capital has an enormous responsibility, because in the end of the day, it decides which ideas and teams transform into startups that then again transform into companies, and these are part of our economy, and we have to make sure to support the right ones.
Especially in ClimateTech, that's for sure. But is that, I mean, I'm curious to know if those frameworks that you guys built in-house, are they replicable in some ways, or it's really like custom based for each of the companies that you are looking at, or at least in terms of like more like due diligence that you're performing at that time? Is that something that you can, in a way, replicate faster to increase the amount of companies that you can look at, or it's really like it's a long process?
So it's quite labor intensive, to be precise. But I think to make smart decisions, you need to look at it in a quite detailed way. So I mean, basically every VC knows to make good business decisions, you need experienced people. And I think that's the same for impact decisions. You need experienced scientists that can put this together and evaluate an idea. And like the more you see, the more you can build up a thesis of what's working and what's the kind of the solution. And you just want to get it right. So you have to build up business knowledge, but you also have to have impact knowledge and then prove it in these calculations. And I think that's what we're here for, to prove that kind of building this scientific knowledge and understanding is valuable, also to help the companies to prove their impact.
That makes sense.
Maybe to add something to that, if we share the conviction that we necessarily need to transform vast majorities of our industry towards a more sustainable future, then this leads us to believe that the companies which are going to create huge impact are also going to be called successful in the old manner of from an economic standpoint. And therefore, we are under the belief that if you have a quantitative tool to estimate the impact potential of a certain company, this is indeed a good proxy for the economical success of a certain company, because in the end, there will be a correlation between created impact and the revenue model behind it. So what we're really aiming for, and that's maybe a hint towards our investment criteria, is we are looking for business models where per unit of revenue created, we have that unit of impact created.
Do you include any like social impact too, or it's purely? I mean, I don't know. Do you include social impact in there or not?
Not as a reason to invest. So some of the
Okay.
companies we now invest in, they have a positive social impact, but we don't take it as a metric to make the decision if we invest yes or no. So I think given that, I mean, a normal fund has fund managers and business people and we as Planet A, we said, okay, in order to make good decisions, we also have to have the scientific side and precise numbers. And I think for us, being precise in the criteria, climate and kind of circular economy, if you wrap the other two together, having that level of precision there is like already a lot to change in a venture fund. And I think for us, it's kind of having this level of precision and bring this to the table for these startups is what we want to prove. As Nick explained, also as a proof for the economic success of these companies. Later down the road, if we're going to raise a second fund or a third fund, we're happy to enable probably more indicators. But I think we're already doing a huge innovation by having the level of precision in the criteria I named.
Did you? I mean, how many investment that with Planet A did you guys had already the opportunity to do? And if you have any example of companies that you choose and why not?
So we've seen a bit more than 600 companies so far, while being relatively under stealth mode. So we are not actively trying to play every stage that we could get on. And so this is basically coming to us through our network. And we are in the process of doing a couple of warehousing investments, which are around or across a broad range of different topics, such as plastics and alternatives to plastics, energy, mobility, as well as enabling software. And these are 5 decisions we are very eager on, but there are also a couple of decisions that we did not take, where actually the environmental balance, the emission balance, led us to believe that this is not significant enough in its improvement, or it even turned out that yes, you might do a bit less harm on the one front, but then on the other front, you're actually doing more harm than previously anticipated, and that's then in our case not the significance that we're looking for.
That's a brave decision. I mean, some people are more looking to go and expand capital fast, and I think taking this kind of decision must be not always easy if you have sometimes the pressure of your LPs behind that are looking for maximizing their return. So I think kudos to you guys. I think it's the best way to go.
I would one sentence to that. I would forward this kudos, because there's just so much incredible talent right now building absolutely insanely good companies. So it's rather on our front that we are overwhelmed by the quality of deal flow that we're receiving. So really kudos to the people.
Fantastic. One other thing that I saw with you guys with Planet A, there's this network, this Planet A network. So can you tell us a little bit more about the network in itself, and how do you support your portfolio of founders? In a way, what's the competitive advantage that you offer to them when you decide to get them on board?
So I'm actually incredibly thankful for this network, because as I said, it's like I was kind of paralyzed by my journey, by this 120 days of filming what I've seen, and coming back and learning about the scientific evidence and how that can be part of a fund. I was actually I consider myself more an entrepreneur, and I started to talk to other entrepreneurs, and they kind of said, yeah, hey, that makes sense. And lots of them said, hey, I'm willing to support the portfolio companies which on a scientific level are really doing something meaningful and measurable. And so I heard quite often that they're willing to support and coach the people, and also to invest in the fund we're building. And that was interesting for us because, as you know, it's like building a fund isn't quite easy. And so I was actually want to echo that I'm super happy to get the support from that. And now as we grow and we do the first investments, what we do is that we speak with the startups and see, hey, what are the specific challenges they're having? Sometimes they come to us and say, hey, I need help here. Sometimes we might even see things from the outside with a little bit of experience. And then what we do is that we match that expertise, which is needed to tackle the problem with a limited scope, and match these two and make sure they talk, and also make sure the quality of the conversation is really good. And I think here really is important that to match the right problem with the right person. And we have this in mind as we're building up our Planet A network, that we have a broad range of knowledge across industries, but I know all things like a filmmaker is in there. So it was you can get a bit creative here, and I think that's a benefit of it, to have the optimal support for the portfolio companies. And let me say one last thing. I think the thing we're most grateful for, they're all doing this because they want to be part of the solution. They want to help these portfolio companies. And I think it's kind of brave what these entrepreneurs are doing right now, because they're really tackling the problems we all should care about. And giving them the best foundation to build their companies is the only thing we can do.
Fantastic. That's a great job, guys. So one of the question that I like to ask is a little bit like your point of view on the challenges and opportunities on the climate tech industry today. What do you think is missing? And maybe if there's any, according to you individually, like any difference regarding the first, I would say, clean tech rush that happened a few years ago.
So I think the common denominator in the entire industries right now is to channel old money into a new direction. And I think there are a couple of absolutely brave examples where this is happening exactly in the way it is supposed to be. But then what we are experiencing on a daily basis is that there is, in some cases, a lot of talk and too little walk. And I don't think that this is due to a malicious nature, but this is simply because there is, of course, a certain uncertainty to the entire industry. You just called it out. There has been a clean tech bubble which popped around a decade ago. And of course, there is still some lone wolves running through the streets, and people who have burned their fingers badly. But we believe that right now what we're seeing is a fundamental shift of paradigm, led by regulatory change, led by broad divestment schemes from fossil fuels into renewable energies, new innovation which is getting funded, and also companies which are doing their climate pledges. And I think big capital givers can and also must be a bit more courageous on how they allocate their capital at the moment. Because if you're only going to invest into solutions which have a proper track record for the past decade, then it's going to be very narrow in what you can invest. But we don't have that time. Unfortunately, this time, for example, when it comes to, let's say, a certain deep tech topic or the hottest stuff which is happening in crypto right now, I think this is an area where we have a bit more time. And if it doesn't happen overnight, then it is bad for some people, but the world isn't going to end. In the case of climate tech, things lie a bit differently. Like every day counts. We're now really at the point where every day counts, and we need to be a bit more courageous. And I think there is reason to believe that courage is going to pay off.
So how do you, because I guess that should be like a question of those LPs asking you, but okay, if I give you 10 millions, what is my return on investment here? Like, how do you prove them or try to mitigate the risk of that, the money that they will put And I will say in the ClimateTech in general, will give them the return that they expect, because at the end of the day, money manager people are always looking for that one metrics that they want absolutely to achieve. Or you go into the non-profit world, which as venture investors is not what you are also made for. So tell me a little bit more about that, if you can, or maybe Fridtjof.
So
I pass it to Nick.
so basically, I'm coming back to something I said before. We have to see that fundamental shift of economy throughout all different industry verticals. And I'm with you, I really want to generalize this right now and not pinpoint it to Planet A, because there is always going to be outliers, and I don't want to argue with outliers. But if impact VC, and it mustn't necessarily be impact VC, but also impact PE, etc. If that is not going to achieve outstanding returns from a very traditional standpoint in terms of economic return, then we are, I don't want to say doomed, but that is bad news. Because if we're not able as a human society to fundamentally shift and towards a more sustainable economy, which is also driven by technological innovation, then we have much bigger problems at hand than not achieving highly competitive returns. So if you believe that this change, that this transition is going to happen, then you also have your answer at hand why the returns are going to be competitive.
Mm-hmm. So one question that I'd like to hear from you guys, answer, is there any way that the community can help you today?
I think something in general which we wish to see is that we start to look more on the numbers when it comes to impact, that we actually look at the evidence of all the different ideas. And I think a community, let it be a founder, let it be another investor, let it be an LP, they, like, a founder should, like, if you have the privilege to decide what you do, then think about what you do also from the numbers perspective, where you can make the biggest difference. And I would encourage to say that as well to investors and LPs is, where do you put your money? And I think often we talk lots about what we consume and that kind of stuff, but where we put our money and who or for which idea we work for is an often overlooked one. And if you want to drive change, then either build the change you want to see or invest in the change you want to see. And I think that is quite general, and it doesn't matter with who you go, but do it.
That makes sense. So any question that I should have asked and I did not during the first part of the interview right now? Anything that you want to add, or think that we didn't cover that you would like to share?
I think I'm happy. So if you're happy and if you find this interesting, then it's good.
I'm super happy. Thank you so much for sharing all of those interesting insights and your story. And I think explaining a little bit more about how Planet A is really articulating their effort in terms of impact, but also in terms of empowering the different startups and founders that you are working with. So it's fantastic.